Well, we begin tonight with that breaking news. A convicted murderer executed tonight, 33 years after the crime that put him on death row. Stephen West was convicted of the kidnapping, rape, and murders of Wanda Romines and her daughter Sheila. West died tonight at 8:27 Eastern Time. His final words were, quote, "In the beginning, God created man, and Jesus wept. That's all." End quote. Tonight, anchor Lori Tucker was inside as a witness of the execution, but we begin tonight with Madison Keevy, who was outside the prison all day.
Justice. That's how close friends of the Romines family described the days, the weeks, the months, years leading to Stephen West's execution. It took 33 years, and in a statement read after his execution tonight, it should have come sooner.
I realize there are other families going through some of the same feelings and punishment that my family and I have had to experience very needlessly. Something in our judicial system has to be done to put a stop to all of this needless suffering for families of prolonged justice.
The statement read, written by Eddie Campbell, a friend who was more like family. It was penned months before tonight, only to be read when Stephen West's execution was complete.
His last words were, "In the beginning, God created man." He began weeping a little bit at this point and continued on. "And Jesus wept. That's all."
Witnesses describe West weeping as he gave his last words.
When it comes to final words, we don't normally see them sobbing and crying. So that kind of took me aback in that moment.
West pronounced dead at 8:27 Eastern Time. Notable, his emotion throughout.
You know, you can see the inmate's face during the lethal injection. During the electrocution, they have the veil over their face, and of course, before that, though, they're facing you, and so we could see his face. We could see him looking at his attorney, and we could see him again crying.
The emotion that West showed, something really every witness talked about tonight, and one we know well. WATE 6 on your side, anchor Lori Tucker, you were an official witness tonight. You saw this emotion that was described. Talk to us about what you saw.
Well, you know, really the moment we saw that emotion begin was when West locked eyes with his attorney, who had just walked into the witness room. We'd been waiting about 15 minutes or so for her to arrive. She sat on the front row. They looked at each other. He made a little face as if to say, "Here it is, it's time." And she dabbed at her eyes with the tissue, and then the process began. He was asked fairly quickly his last words, and they were, "In the beginning, God created man." Then he started weeping, and the weeping became a little more profound. And then he said, "And Jesus wept. That's all." And then he lowered his head, and he continued to cry. He was wearing glasses, as we've seen in his mugshot. He looked very different than he did in the mugshot that we have shown people for the last year or so, and it had changed recently. He had a beard. That, of course, was shaved. His glasses were removed. Huge sea sponges soaked in brine were placed atop his head. The cap was placed on his head, and the salt water was just pouring down his face. And for a time, we really couldn't tell what were tears and what was the brine.
And, you know, before this, you've talked to the Romines family, friends. Were they going through your mind as you're watching this take place?
I couldn't get them out of my mind. I kept thinking, Wanda, Sheila, it's happening, it's happening. And this is 33 years old, well before my time here, but certainly we have followed up on this throughout the years. And I just talked to one of Sheila's friends for the first time. She's never spoken publicly about this. And she's a counselor at Anderson County High School. And it was just earlier this week, and that really brought it back, her emotions that are still so fresh, because it dredged everything back up again, that horrific day that she lost her friend. So yes, they very much were on my mind tonight.
And any last thoughts? I mean, this process relatively short comparatively to the waiting process that we had all afternoon, you know, just a few minutes. Is there anything else that you feel is important to share as an official witness?
I've never seen you know, an execution take place. And I must admit, when I heard it was going to be by the electric chair, it really gave me pause for a moment, and I was a little bit nervous about it. But watching it, it was very quick. The shroud was over his face. You don't see the person's face. And before we knew it, it was over. And time of death was 7:27 Nashville time, 8:27 Eastern time. And the warden was told that was the time of death. The last thing we heard from that room, that concludes the execution of Stephen West.
Thank you so much, Lori Tucker. Again, a somber day here, but of course that execution, 33 years on death row in Nashville. I'm Madison Keevy, WATE 6 on your side.
All right, Madison and Lori, thank you. And again, friends of Wanda and Sheila Romines remembering the victims tonight. As you heard Lori just reference, we talked with Jenny Martin this week, a childhood friend of Sheila. She said that Sheila played on the basketball team in high school and was easy to get along with. She also said that she was never intimidated by the older players. That's how she's remembering her. We also caught up with Eddie Campbell. You heard Madison Keevy mention him. He was like a brother to Wanda. He said it was the little things that make Wanda and Sheila so relatable to those in the community who were never able to meet them. Meanwhile, protests against the execution were held statewide in the form of vigils, one happening right here in Knoxville at Crouch Park. One person who attended the vigil says she's just been to too many.
I've actually attended more vigils than I wish I had for these executions in the last year. So we are here to say that there's a better way than the death penalty.
Other vigils were held around Tennessee in Nashville, Memphis, and in Pleasant Hill. Now, if you want to look at all of our coverage from today, including stories on the victims leading up to tonight's execution, you can go to our website at WATE.com. Look under the As Seen On section.